Hello. All right. Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome back. Welcome back once again to the Wednesday night webinar from OCD. Glad to have you all here. Got a bunch of questions in already, so let's start with the first one. Josh says, I'm at the end of my treatment with OCD and have noticed some increased anxiety around particular things. Well, Josh, let me correct you. Doesn't have to be an end here, right? We can continue to see you, right? So you're not at the end, Josh. Just want to really reinforce that to everybody. You're not at the end. We don't have to have an end here, right? We can continue to work with you until you feel like you just don't need it anymore. So keep that in mind. All right, keep that in mind. And let's see. Yeah, you've noticed some increased anxiety around particular themes, whether they can return, get worse, or whether a new obsession altogether can arise. Is this a backdoor spike? Why does this happen? And is there a relation between fear extinction and the backdoor spike? Yes, well, of course, there's a backdoor spike that can happen for people. You know, when you perceive that maybe something's coming to an end, then you're gonna be like, oh, wait a minute, now what if this and what if that and everything. So again, let me just reinforce with you, you're not coming to an end. All right, there's doesn't have to be coming to an end of OCD treatment, because we want to make sure that we're there for you to deal with all the problems that you have and can continue to see you weekly. Okay, so just keep that in mind, because tonight, Wednesday night webinar, brought to you, of course, by OCD. OCD, a downloadable app you can get through Google Play or iOS. And we have teletherapy. So reach out to us if you're in the UK or in Australia or Canada and here in the US, and let us know how we can help you. You can go to nocd.com or treatmyocd.com as well to get started, to talk to our care team and see if we can get a therapist set up with you. All right. No one, I repeat, no one ought to be surprised by the fact that once you're treating OCD, OCD will then say to you, hey, but now what if it comes back, right? And what if all these things? Just remember this. OCD will use any opportunity that it can to stick around. Any opportunity that it can to frighten you. Any opportunity that it can to try to kind of ruin your day. Because remember, OCD does not care about you. OCD cares about OCD. You are not important to OCD. OCD is important to OCD. Okay? So keep that in mind, right? It happens all the time that people will report stressors can bring about spikes to things, fearing that what if I don't get to go to therapy anymore can bring this about, all these things. But we're there for you, Josh. We're not going anywhere. You're going to be able to keep making appointments with your therapist, and we'll make sure things are good. Kristen says, my boyfriend asked for some space recently because my relationship OCD and constant need for reassurance has become draining to him. Okay. I haven't heard from him in almost a week, and I'm worried that he wants to break up. The uncertainty is driving me crazy and my anxiety is incredibly high. I feel like I can't really cope very well. Any advice for what I can do? Is there a normal amount of time for space? Well, I don't know if there's a normal amount of time for space, but let's talk a little bit about relationship OCD, because I often talk about OCD being the creator of the thing that it doesn't want. By constantly seeking reassurance from someone, Kristen, you have seen this now, you have caused someone to create your biggest fear, which is they've now asked for some space, right? So again, this is what I was just saying. OCD doesn't care about your boyfriend, right? OCD does not care about your boyfriend. OCD only cares about being satisfied. So if OCD's worry is, do you really love me enough, and do you find me attractive enough, and or whatever. I don't know, Chris, but I'm just using those as examples. But if those are the concerns, and your boyfriend has answered them numerous times, and yet your OCD isn't satisfied with the answers or believes them only for a little bit and then needs some more reassurance about them, out of wanting an absolute 100% guarantee, right, that my boyfriend isn't going to leave me, and what has now happened? Your boyfriend has now asked for a break. So the very thing that your OCD was trying to get constant reassurance about wouldn't happen has happened for one reason, it appears, and that is because of your OCD continuing to seek reassurance about that thing. Now, I want everyone to really pay attention to this, right? This is so very important because this is just an excellent example of what I was talking about. OCD wasn't paying attention to any cues from the boyfriend about, okay, this is getting old or getting tiring or something. Or if it was only looking at, oh my gosh, now he seems to be frustrated with me. I better now ask him reassurance to see if he thinks everything's fine or okay, because now he appears frustrated. But what if he's frustrated because of all the reassurance seeking that you've been asking for, right? So now asking for more reassurance about if he's frustrated because of all the reassurance adds to more frustration. So this is why we talk about in OCD treatment, we have to live with doubt and uncertainty. This consistent seeking of reassurance becomes the thing that has driven someone to want a break. When OCD says uncertainty is unacceptable, there's a problem. And the problem is this. Has anyone with OCD ever gotten an answer that has brought about certainty to them? I would say the answer is no. Now, if any of you who are listening today have OCD and can say, yes, I once received an answer that gave me absolute certainty and I've never had OCD again, I'd like to hear about it. We should write a paper on you, right? It doesn't work that way. The doubting disorder seeks 100% reassurance, but doubts every answer that it is given. And therefore, the doubting disorder doubts everything and everyone. It's just the way it is. Okay? So, Kristen, I sure hope you two are able to get back together. I really do. That is my hope for you. But for your getting together again to be successful, it will mean being okay with doubt, being okay with uncertainty, and recognizing that the one thing that has the greatest chance of interfering with your relationship is doing what your relationship-based OCD wants you to do. That is probably the single greatest threat to your relationship, will be to give in to your relationship OCD. But you'll say, but it feels so strong, but I just need, and yeah, I hear those excuses all the time. Everybody says that. The reality is that if relationship OCD actually helped relationships, why did your boyfriend need some space? because relationship OCD doesn't help your relationship. Relationship OCD just interferes. That's all it does. Okay. Good luck, Kristen. I hope it works out for you. Vanessa says, I'm recovering from sexual orientation OCD, but I now have bad anxiety to the opposite sex now, especially when it comes to dating and having lost confidence. Is this common, and how should I approach this? Anything can be common in OCD world, right? And remember, this loss of confidence is potentially doubt. Well, you're right back in the realm of OCD. This is one of those tricky OCD screen things. Oh, let's throw a little doubt in there, but we'll call it loss of confidence. Still doubt, right? So now you're talking about, the opposite sex here. And now, without knowing it, your sexual orientation OCD might be saying to you, are you really wanting that opposite sex? Are you really good enough for that opposite sex? Is this really going to be okay? Right? Don't be fooled. All right? Don't be fooled. This is all part of OCD. Loss of confidence is another phrase for doubt. So I just want you to keep that in mind. Okay? Daily Art Grind, welcome back. How do we deal with fears that are in the realm of possibility? Aren't all fears in the realm of possibility? Like the ceiling collapsing on me is in the realm of possibility. And every time I drive, getting in an accident is in the realm of possibility. And I live a block from an airport, so there's a realm of possibility of a plane crashing on my house, realm of possibility. Like they are unlikely to happen, but are not exactly irrational. I have so many of these, it keeps me cycling between them. So let me just talk about this in one sense. The difference between someone with and someone without OCD would be someone with OCD just accepts the fact that pretty much anything is the realm of possibility, right? And they kind of go with it. And someone with OCD says, holy crap, look at all these things that are in the realm of possibility. I better think about all of them and try to figure all of them out to make sure nothing bad happens with any of them. Okay. Daily Art Grind, you have no different realms of possibility of things happening to you than I do. Not at all. None at all. Okay. We live with the exact same realms of possibility. I pay very little attention to them. You, because of OCD, have a radar going that's going beep, 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 beep. Oh, there's one. Beep, beep, beep. Oh, there's one. Beep, 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 beep. Up, up, up. Look at all these realms of possibility. As I like to say, you're not special in the sense that you have different realms of possibility than everyone else. OCD believes in this concept of specialness. The rules of the world apply to me differently than they do to everybody else. It's crap, right? It's not true. But it wants you to believe that. It wants you to hold on to that. But it's just not true. Amy Gemby says, is it normal for my thoughts to have thoughts in OCD? Sure, why not? I mean, boy, yeah. I love this concept of, is it normal? First of all, I have no idea what the hell normal is, but number two, nothing's out of the realm of possibility, to go back to that, for what OCD might lead someone to kind of think about. So I don't know if it's thoughts have thoughts. I might change it a little bit to thoughts lead to other thoughts. It might feel like thoughts are having thoughts, but I think that it's thoughts lead to other thoughts, and you just get this chain kind of thing going, and there's all these thoughts chained together. So that, sure, happens all the time. Kim says hi. Hi, Kim. Troy says, hey, Patrick, hi. I don't know how to make solid decisions anymore, and I don't know what to do. Troy, what is a solid decision? Just curious. Is a solid decision a decision with no doubt whatsoever? Because if it is, I also don't know how to make solid decisions. So I'm curious, what is the definition of a solid decision, right? This to me sounds like one of those words that OCD loves. Oh, Troy, is this a solid decision? Well, how do you define solid, right? Can you define solid? Or is it this obtuse kind of thing that there's no way to actually define it, which frankly, OCD loves things that are not defined all that well, because then it says, you're not quite there. No, well, that was a little close, but not quite. Try again. Wasn't quite solid enough. Be a little more solid. I don't know if I've ever made a solid decision. I can probably look at almost any decision in my life and find some minor flaw in it even. Right. I could throw any what if onto any decision I've ever made in my life and say, well, what if I'd done that? What if I'd done that? Now, the second part is what to do. Well, the what to do is, again, what we've said so far tonight. We live with doubt. We live with uncertainty, and we move along. Now, here's the lie, everyone. OCD says, but I can't live with doubt or uncertainty, which is a lie because you do, right? I mean, none of us can guarantee the ceiling won't collapse on top of us by the time this program's over. So we live with doubt. None of us can guarantee that the power won't go out in the middle of this and you'll even get a full hour with me. So we live with doubt. None of us can guarantee that my hard drive won't crash in the middle of this. So we live with doubt. None of us can guarantee I won't have a heart attack in the middle of this. Could happen. We live with doubt. Maybe some solid decisions would be, I'll have a generator backup for everything in the house so that the webinar goes. I'll have an ambulance on standby, so if I do have a heart attack, they can shock me right away and I can get back in my chair and continue this to make sure that everything goes okay. Maybe those would be really solid decisions, but they might be a lot of overkill as well too. MJ says, how can you tell between curiosity and compulsion obsession? Well, curiosity is of interest to someone. Oh, I'd like to check that out. And then usually becoming satisfied with an answer to something, or at least with what you found. Whereas an obsession is always wanting to know more, having to know more. And compulsion would be searching out more, but then never being satisfied with whatever it is. If I'm curious about, let's say the star Sirius, right? I'll go online and I'll look it up, or I'll get out an encyclopedia, I'll read about it, and go, oh, that was neat. I'll be satisfied with my answer. But if it's obsessions, do I know enough? Maybe I should find more, right? And then I have to get more and more and more. And I always have doubt and I'm never satisfied. I would say those would be ways that I would kind of tell the difference. DTA Lou 27, can you get a normal sex life back if you're having sexual themed OCD? Well, again, I don't know what normal is, but of course. You can get normal hand washing back after contamination. You can get normal driving back after harm OCD. You can get a normal sex life back after sexual themed OCDs. Of course you can. All those things. I mean, that's our whole goal. Again, normal in quotes, because I don't really know what normal is, but you get the point, right? Absolutely. Cool Guy says, hey, I'm having some struggles with seeing God loves me or Jesus. sounds like religious scrupulosity potentially, right? And I would ask one question. What would God or Jesus need to do in order to prove to you 100%? And the answer would be, there's probably nothing they could do because you have OCD. Because I've joked with people with scrupulosity who said, your higher power themselves could come and stand next to you and say, hey, you're good. No, all's well. And your OCD would go, are you sure? Are you really 100% confident about that? Because I don't know. But what if, remember when I did this that one time? What if you'd one day decide that you think that's punishable and you don't like that? Yeah, no, we're good. We're good. Are you sure though? Right. So cool guy, I can't give you an answer to how you're going to feel 100% love from a higher power, because OCD would never allow you to feel that. So it's not about finding a 100% love from a higher power. It's about knowing that I can doubt that I have it and being okay with that. That's where you need to go. That's the goal. Okay. Stacy asked, what's a backdoor spike? Stacy, as you're getting back to the end of treatment and you're feeling like maybe it's going to be done, and then suddenly you start worrying about all these what if questions, but now I want to have my therapist there, and oh my gosh, what if this, what if this, and what if this? And even though I've gone through therapy and I've been successful, all the doubt and things start to come back. Not uncommon, not unusual, right? It's because you're losing some of that safety of that therapy. Amanda says, having my first session in a few weeks. Awesome. I saw your YouTube video about different OCD and it was right on the money. Well, thank you. I like being right on the money. I don't like being off on the money. I like being right on the money. So that's good. 98K views. Oh, congratulations. That's a lot of views. Wonderful. Says they need help with ROCD. They're always apologizing. Oh, let me tell you a fun story. I was working with someone once, and they were apologizing a lot. And I recognized it very soon as a compulsion to apologize. So I said, starting tomorrow, the work that we do, they were in an intensive program that I was running years ago. Said, starting tomorrow, I'm not going to accept any more apologies. Okay. So they were going through the day, and they knocked on the door and they had a question. And so they asked me the question. I gave them the answer. And they said, oh, thanks. Sorry to bother you. And I said to them, I don't accept that apology. And he stopped. And he's like, what? He said, but I'm sorry. I said, yeah, I know, but I don't accept your apology. But you have to. I'm sorry. No, I don't. And for an hour and a half, he stood at my door, and I was doing emails and work and all sorts of things. And once in a while he'd say, but I'm really sorry. So that's it. Fine. I don't accept it, but that's great. Good on you. And finally, after an hour and a half, his anxiety had calmed down, and he said, I'm going to have to go live with that doubt now, aren't I? I said, yep. Yeah, you are. That's the goal. And he said, all right. And he walked. And he came back the next day and he thanked me. And he said, you're the first person who's never accepted an apology from me. But it's what needed to happen. So, yeah, it is what needed to happen. Because everybody who accepted your apology all the time was giving in to a compulsion that you were doing. Right? So apologizing doesn't really help things after a while. In fact, many people after a while, after they hear the 90th apology of the day, just see it as a phrase like, or dude, something like that. It's meaningless after a while. Now, 98K views, I don't mean to say that to spike your anxiety, but I want you to know the truth. And I will always tell people the truth on this webinar, that the apologizing becomes something that gets annoying after a while to people, And then people will say, stop apologizing all the time. And then you'll apologize for apologizing, which will just get people more angry and frustrated over time. Okay. So it is okay to not apologize and just let things be. See how it goes. Troy says, God, dude, I hope there's a cure for this one day. I would never have thought this would happen to me. Not in a million years. Well, Troy, I don't talk about a cure for any mental health conditions, right? I talk about just learning to be able to live with it and not let it influence you, right? I live with something that doesn't have a cure. I have tinnitus or tinnitus. Those of you with OCD hear intrusive thoughts or see intrusive images or have intrusive urges. I hear an intrusive sound. I can't talk today. I hear an intrusive sound 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It is a high-pitched, screechy sound that is always happening to me at all times. And so far, there is absolutely no cure at all for it. And I will live the rest of my life listening to that sound. It will always be there. And I accept that. And that's why it doesn't bother me. Right? And that's the goal that I try to get with all the people that I work with as well, too. No one has to listen to whatever their OCD says. No one has to believe it either. You just don't. I think of some former guests I've had, and I always appreciate them. One who said, when I wake up in the morning, I walk downstairs and I see my dog and my OCD says, you might stab your dog. Her response is, oh, I must really love my dog if my OCD's picking on it today. What a great, great way to respond. Awesome, awesome way. Okay. Eternal Peace says, how do I deal with what if contamination OCD thoughts? Well, what if, you just said one of my favorite phrases in the world. What if? And I say favorite in a not so favorite way, because the what if world is what OCD lives in, right? OCD loves it some what if. Okay. Here's the problem. Is there an answer to a what if? At least, is there an answer that you'll accept, right? Because what if has a cousin, all right? What if's cousin is yeah, but what if? So here's a typical conversation. Dr. McGrath, what if I touch something and then I get a contaminant on myself and then I touch something else and then someone else touches it and they get sick and they die and it's all my fault? I'll say, well, how would you ever know that? Well, and you might say, well, I don't. Yeah, but what if I do? I've never once given an answer to someone with OCD and they've said, ooh, wow, awesome. Yeah, that solved it. Thank you. Thank you. That's awesome. That's great. I'm good now. No more OCD. Doesn't bother me anymore. Thank you. Don't work that way. What I get whenever I've tried to give a logical answer is a yeah, but what if kind of experience, which is why I've kind of walked away. And I train people to walk away from trying to have arguments and debates and discussions with OCD, because OCD doesn't listen. OCD doesn't really care about my answers, right? If I say an answer that isn't what OCD is afraid of, OCD is going to go, yeah, but what if? Now, if I do say an answer that OCD is afraid of, it's going to go, see, I knew it. I told you. He said I could touch something and it could contaminate other people and they could die and it could happen. And therefore, I can't go outside anymore and ever take that chance. Those are the people I say, well, then please send me the keys and the title of your car. I will take it from you, because you could also, every time you're in a car, run someone over and kill them with your car. And if your goal is to never potentially harm anyone whatsoever, then I'll take your car from you and remove that chance of that happening as well too. When people say, yeah, but I need my car to get around, I say, oh, interesting. So it's okay to kill someone with your car, but it's not okay to kill someone with a contaminant. Now, of course, I'm blowing that out of proportion, right? But you get the point. OCD picks and chooses. It's okay if this, but not that. Right? Eternal peace, I cannot convince you that your what if thoughts are or are not true. You already believe they are true. So I'm not going to try to convince you that they are. But there's nothing I can do to convince you that they are not true. But eternal peace, I also wouldn't want to do that because I can't guarantee that you wouldn't get contaminated or you wouldn't pass on a contaminant to another person. I can never make a 100% guarantee about that. It's just not possible. I just say I'd like you to live like people without OCD do, is they live their life and they may pass things on here or there, but they handle it and they move on and they live in their world. Right? They know how to deal with it. They can handle it. And that's where you can get to as well. That's the goal. That's where we want you to be. GW, I'm afraid to sleep in the same bed as new partner in case I sleep talk about my POCD. What should I do? Well, sleep in the same bed as your new partner. Number one. Otherwise, just sleeping away from them is a compulsion, right? It's a safety behavior that you're doing. Number two, are they aware of your OCD? Have you shared it with them? Those kinds of things. And if you're not there yet, that's okay. I'm not saying that you have to, but you also want to be aware of the fact that the more safety behaviors you do around this person, the more suspicious they might become about why do they always do this or that, or never want to go here or there, or, why don't they ever want to go with me when I visit my sister and my niece and nephew, or those types of things, right? OCD thinks it's the great hider. No one will notice this. And that's just not true. Right? That's just not true. Okay. Ash White says, how do I deal with a realistic trigger? My college has an infestation and I'm not sleeping at night and I'm staring at the ceiling, the walls, and the windows, and I've been avoiding every place I've seen a spider. Okay. Well, let me ask you this. Just because there's a spider, what danger is that to you? I mean, what kind of spiders are we talking about, first of all? Dangerous, poisonous, tarantulas? What are we talking about? And let's just be honest, folks. When we're anywhere, maybe in the chair we're sitting right now, or when we're in bed at night, we don't know that there's not a spider in our bed, whether there's an infestation or not. In fact, Ash White, it is fascinating that you bring this one up, because this morning when I got out of bed, on the edge of my bed, I saw a spider. So, you know what I'm going to do tonight, Ash White? I'm going to go sleep in my bed. Even though I saw a spider on the bed frame this morning, I'm still going to sleep in my bed. You've lived your entire life, Ash White, with the possibility of there being a spider in your bed, or on your ceiling, or on the wall. You just didn't care about it. Right? But now, because somebody said something about it, suddenly it's in your conscious awareness, and now you think, holy crap, I better pay some attention to this. Do you really need to? Is it really that important? Are there other people sleeping there? Are there people dying of spider attacks? Is the problem the spiders or the problem your thoughts about them? That's what I want you to think about. Katie says, I've just started therapy. I'm having trouble dealing with real life issues, water coming in under the basement door, and unable to find someone to help me fix it, etc. Well, Katie, let your therapist know the real life stressors that are going on as well, too, because I think a good therapist can also kind of give you some advice about where to find some help for those types of things. But boy, if there's water, there's tons of different companies out there that can help with that kind of stuff. So I hope you find some of those things. However, don't consistently look things up over and over. Find one, call them, have them come out, and go with it. Lady Kitsuko, like that. Is burnout normal with OCD? I feel really burnt out with the constant thoughts, and I'm really exhausted with gender-related thoughts, even the good ones. Well, of course. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, OCD, remember, is exhausting. And OCD doesn't give a crap about you and how exhausted you are. OCD is like, yes, but I need to think more about this. We need more time and attention to this. It must happen. It must be done that way. That's the only thing that will work and be helpful, is to get an answer. Even though there's no answer that will ever be satisfying to me whatsoever, but I have to keep doing it anyway, because if I don't, then I'll feel like I've given up, and I feel like I've given up, then I'll have to live with this for the rest of my life. And I don't really want to live with this for the rest of my life, so it would be best if I just continue to try to find the answer. And maybe one day I actually find it, then I'll be satisfied, and then we'll never have to worry about this ever again for the rest of my life. Sound familiar to anyone? I bet it does. I bet lots of money it does, actually. Little reminder, once again, everyone, tonight's brought to you by NoCD, NoCD downloadable app you can get on Google Play or iOS. Please reach out to us at nocd.com. If you're looking for teletherapy, we've got therapists all over the US and in Australia and the UK and Canada, our friends to the north. Hello, Canada. Oh, Canada. Welcome. Good to have you. Canada, by the way, home of the greatest band ever in the history of the world, Rush. Thank you very much. And another awesome band, Great Big Sea. Thank you. Thank you, Canada, for the wonderful music. Another great group from Canada, Ash and Bloom, though they've broken up. They were awesome. Elliot says, Troy's not alone. Oh, good. I love when you guys talk to each other. That's really awesome. Thanks for the support you all give each other, too, because that's really great. Mike says, been avoiding relationships for over a decade, fear of failure, acceptance, lack of confidence, and the possible emotional damage that could occur. So I completely avoid it so I won't experience pain. Yeah. But then the opposite's probably true. I bet, Mike, that you feel pain because you don't have a relationship or you're not in one or something like that. So that could happen as well. Avoidance never feels great after a while, even though in the moment it does. Right? We got to remember two things. Are we going to do what feels good right now, or are we going to do what feels best for me later on? I want you to work on what's going to be best for you later on, not necessarily what feels good right now. That's what's important for everybody. Brittany says, can you treat and overcome our OCD? I diagnosed myself. Yeah, reach out to NoCD, Brittany. We can help you with some really good teletherapy. Love, peace, fear of schizophrenia. How do I deal with it? Do people with schizophrenia, OCD, do they only fear it, or they feel not right in the mind? That's what they fear it, because they get horrible feelings. Well, love, peace. If OCD is latched onto something, then it will tell you, what if you're going to get that? What if you would have that? What if all these things? And then you develop this kind of hypervigilance, shall we say, right? Once you're afraid of something, You become really hypervigilant to it. People with panic disorder do this all the time. Once they have a panic attack, they become very hypervigilant to all their bodily sensations. So now they're constantly scanning their body to see if they're going to have a panic attack. The more you scan your body, the more you start to feel symptoms. The more symptoms you feel, the more you believe you're going to have a panic attack. The more often you believe you're going to have a panic attack, the more likely you are to have a panic attack. And now the very thing that you've done, scanning your body to make sure you're not going to have a panic attack, becomes the thing that leads you to having a panic attack. Well, that can go on in your brain too. What if my brain feels weird? And the more that you're wondering if your brain feels weird, then you might notice, oh, geez, my brain feels weird. And then, oh my gosh, that must mean I'm having schizophrenia. Oh, now I've got to check constantly to see, am I having hallucinations? Am I having delusions? All these kinds of things. Again, it's living with doubt and uncertainty and being okay with that fact. That's where you need to go. Okay, that's what you need to do. Lily says, is it a good idea to tell close friends about my OCD, or is it better not to? I think this is where we can get the herd mentality of everyone kind of jumping in and answering Lily's question for her, because, it's a very personal thing. And I'd love to hear what some of you who have told or haven't told, why you have or haven't. Lily, I don't know that there's any one great answer about this, but I have seen that when people have told, there's been a lot of great support from people about it. So I'd love to hear what other people think about that. Dan says, hello, my partner has told me he was diagnosed with OCD. Almost daily, he moves whole rooms of furniture around, including shelves. What causes this? Why is he compelled to do this? There could be a perfectionism kind of thing where things just don't feel right or perfect. And so you got to continue to do that until it feels just right. So a just right OCD might lead someone to do something until it feels just right. And it might in the moment. And then the next day they wake up and go, wait, no, it's not quite just right. So what you want people to do, Dan, is to sit with something that feels just wrong, right? And recognize that I can handle that and that it's okay for something not to feel just right. So hope that helps. That would be the goal. Dan, there's good therapy for your partner out there. Reach out to us at NoCD. See what we can do to help. Derek says, I heard a song say that healing doesn't come from the explained. I like that. Thanks. Thanks, Derek. That's cool. Christy W. I am really struggling with numbers OCD. I know there is not a lot of magical thinking. Not a lot on magical thinking OCD. Why can't I get past it? Well, Christy, I'm wondering what you're doing with the numbers, right? Is there a belief that certain numbers are good, certain numbers are bad? If you have this notion that certain numbers are bad or wrong or feel bad or wrong, I want you to do things those numbers. Sometimes people like even numbers, sometimes they like odd numbers, sometimes certain numbers. Some people don't watch certain channels on TV or listen to certain channels on the radio because it has a number in it or it feels wrong. Sometimes the volume's on even or odd, depending on where they are in the car, or even the air conditioner can be on 2 or 4 or 1 or 3, that kind of thing. So I want you to live with the numbers that you don't like and do things with those numbers and learn that you can handle that. That would be one of the first things that you do to kind of reach out for some help for therapy. Eliza J says, with thought action fusion, I'm trying to sit with the thoughts of bad things happening and not do a compulsion to neutralize it, but it makes me feel like a bad person for not trying to fix it. Any tips? Liza J, thank you, because I get to bring up my example again. At some point during this webinar, I may, go outside, throw a Molotov cocktail at my neighbor Dave's house, go in the middle of the street, yank down my trousers, poop in a bag, light it on fire, throw it at my neighbor Josh's house, and then he'll come out, stomp on it. That'll set him on fire, and then that'll be funny to watch. And then on the way back, shoot some geese that are in the pond behind my house and leave them there just to die. And then I'll come back here, and I will come back and resume the webinar. Now, I might do that. So Eliza J, what do I need to do to fix it? And how bad of a person am I for not trying to neutralize that? Because I'm not going to try to neutralize it. I'm not going to do anything to neutralize that whatsoever. I'm just going to sit with that thought. I'm going to let that be there. So Eliza J, am I a bad person? I don't think so. I think that's just a thought. I'm going to sit with the fact that it's just a thought. Someone else might say I'm a bad person for even thinking such a thing. Okay, that's fine. You can think that. Doesn't bother me. You know what the difference then would be? I don't have OCD and you do. And you think by having that kind of thought, you must neutralize it or else you're a bad person for not trying to fix it. And I think, wow, that was a weird thought. And I let it go. Which proves to you that it is let goable. We'll make that a word or phrase today. It is let goable if you choose to let it go. But if you don't choose to let it go, it is not let goable. Keep that in mind. Love Peace says, and numb harm OCD feelings. So when I feel numb and harm OCD, then I fear I am developing schizophrenia. Oh, okay. That was just kind of in relation to the thing we talked about already. Jack Key says we have to reassure ourselves and be our own best friend. I'm going to challenge you, Jackie. You don't have to reassure yourself, and you can still be your own best friend by teaching yourself to live with doubt and uncertainty and being okay with it. That, I think, is truly the way that you're going to become your best friend. Because I don't know, well, let's take it outside of OCD for a minute. Is a best friend a person who continues to buy you alcohol so that you don't have to go through withdrawal? Or is a best friend a person who takes you to the hospital so that you can go through withdrawal and make sure that you do it safely and securely? That's what I want to ask. Think about that. User says, hello, I'm 16 and I've become very afraid that I'll eventually lash out and become the worst human being. User, you and many other people that are on this webinar, by the way, I also made a lot of mistakes when I was 14 or 15, which just makes things worse. Has anyone on this webinar never made a mistake before? Now, user, you might say, well, I've made more than everyone else. And I bet we'd get other people who would argue with that. In fact, fun story, one time I was at the hospital, again, in the program that I ran there at Alexian Brothers Behavioral Health Hospital outside of Chicago. Still doing virtual IOP, by the way. Also have residential at the Foglia Family Foundation Residential Treatment Center, if people are looking. And within the course of a day, I had 4 patients come up to me and say, you know what, I'm afraid that I'm going to become the worst human being ever, or that I am the worst case of OCD, or the worst person you've ever met. You know, some kind of variation of that. 4 people in one day. So when it was time for the checkout group that we would do every day, instead of sending them to the checkout group with all the other patients, I pulled them into a room and I sat down and I said, okay, I've gathered the 4 of you together here because according to each of you, you are the worst human or worst case of OCD I have ever experienced in my professional career. And what I would like is for the 4 of you to fight it out and to decide which one of you is actually the worst. And when you decide, let me know. Go. Well, after a while, they kind of laughed about it and they realized there was no convincing the other person that they were worse than anyone else, right? They all believed they were the own worst person. And I talked about the utter futility of a belief of that nature, and that the only thing that that kind of belief would actually do would be to lead people to not get help because it led them to believe they were unhelpable. Again, I don't know if that's a word, but we're going to use it tonight. And the more that you hold on to the belief that you are unhelpable, the less likely you are to seek help, and the more you will believe that you're the worst human being ever and you are the dregs of society and things of that nature. Okay? No one is unhelpable. I don't believe that for a second, that someone is unhelpable. I just don't. Okay. Maddie says, how do you deal with accepting the thought with POCD and just accepting that you may or may not be this person? Maddie, great question. Because I think this gets to the heart of maybe what's difficult about therapy for everybody. So Maddie, I may or may not harm someone one day. It could be an adult, it could be a child. It could happen. And I accept that. I have no guarantee, Maddie, that I will not harm people in the future. Absolutely none. None whatsoever. It could happen. Right? I accept that. Now, Maddie, you might say, but I can't accept that. I can't accept the fact that it could happen. Maddie, do you accept the fact that you could run someone over with your car? And if you do you still drive? Which means then you can accept the fact that you could kill someone. Because it could happen. Right? If you can accept that, why not accept anything else? Now you might say, okay, but this is the worst. The POCD, the fact that I could sexually harm a child, that is the worst thing ever. And yet I've got other people on this webinar would say, no, it's not. No, my thing is the worst thing ever. I could contaminate other people and cause them to die. I could run someone over with my car. I could ruin every relationship I've ever had in my life and cause other people to go crazy because I'm not good enough. I could start to live in an orientation that's different than my own and leave the people that I've known and loved forever. Everyone on this webinar thinks I shouldn't be this person. I can't be this person. I can't live with this thing. It's time to kind of recognize that the theme isn't as important as what the disorder is really looking at, which is the doubt and acceptance of uncertainty. Can anyone find me one human being that doesn't have uncertainty? Do any of you know a human being who everything is 100% guaranteed for forever? For the rest of their life, and nothing bad will ever happen? Can you find me one? If you can, love to meet them. Love to find out who they are. Just find me one. Otherwise, Maddie, I too have to live with the notion that one day I could harm a child. I could. And I'm still going to go on treating people for OCD, even knowing that I could do that. Brittany says, thank you for sharing all this. So grateful. Well, thank you, Brittany. Glad to have you. Amanda says, you are seriously talking about me. You get it. I keep saying that's me. Awesome. Good. Jordana, has OCD at a young age or in adolescence been shown to impact people's future social, sexual, personal development? Potentially if you don't get it treated, right? But I've seen people do awesome things who have gotten treated in adolescence and gone on to live amazingly wonderful lives. In fact, if you want to see stuff like that, just check out the International OCD Foundation. They do a conference every year. It'll be virtual again this year, but next year it'll be live. And go to the International OCD Foundation conference and meet people who had OCD in adolescence, who have gone on to become therapists and treat people with OCD, and have, just last week we had Chris Johnson on, who talked about his OCD and the development of it, and how now he's a therapist who treats OCD. Sure, you can be successful. You can live a great life. Don't let OCD be something that stops you. Abby says, can OCD make you double? I'm wondering if you meant doubt instead of double, because I don't know what OCD making you double would do, but it definitely would make you doubt, like a gut feeling you say in the neck. Yeah, so I'm going to go with that. OCD's nickname is the doubting disorder, so that's kind of what it does, all the time. OCD, this is Halia. OCD sometimes creates a big, anxious feeling. Yeah, that's what it does. If I don't do a certain thing, that would be a compulsion. Especially harm OCD. I keep thinking something bad will happen, and I get so scared. Any tips to deal with this feeling? The only tip I know to deal with that feeling is to not do the compulsion. Learn that you can handle that, and then that feeling goes away after a while. Right? But I can't talk you out of the feeling. I don't know how to talk you out of the feeling. I've never figured that out. No one ever has. It's not about talking you out of a feeling. It's about learning that you can handle the feeling. That's the goal. I can handle the feeling. It's not about being talked out of a feeling. It's just not the way that it works. Avatal says, how do you trust yourself to make decisions? How do you do the opposite of what OCD wants without mistakenly doing the opposite of what you think is right every time? Well, if OCD was right, then we would want everyone to have OCD, and my job would not be to help people get rid of OCD. My job would be to give OCD to people. So people would come to me and I would teach them how to have OCD if that's what was really helpful to people. Okay. So now you want, Avidal, what you're asking for is 100% reassurance, right? How do you do the opposite of what OCD wants without mistakenly doing the opposite of what you think is right every time? I can't give you an answer to that. I can't give you that guarantee. That doesn't exist. There are times in therapy we try things, they don't work. We don't say, oh, shoot, now we're done. End of the world. No, we say, oh, all right, well, that one didn't work. Let's try something else. Let's see how it goes. You want a guarantee from me here that you'll never do something the opposite of what you think is right. Every time. Every time. You say it right there. Every time. I don't have the ability to tell you that that's the case. Right? I don't make the right decision every time. I make mistakes. Goof things up. Daily. Try to learn from them. Try to be better all the time. But I can't even for myself do everything right every time. There's no way I can teach anyone else to do it too. But you want to know what sets unrealistic goals? OCD. And this is one of those unrealistic goals that OCD sets. Do something without ever doing something wrong. Then you're not human. Then you're a demigod or a god or a supernatural being, if that's the case. So if you're that, you can just click your fingers and make it happen. If you're not, you're a human. You're going to make mistakes, and that's just the way it's going to be. Kyla says, this is great. Thank you. Well, you're welcome. Kayla says, have you heard of antipsychotics being prescribed for OCD? I'm not psychotic. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Sometimes they're prescribed too because the belief in the obsession is so deep or so kind of just stuck in there that a low-dose atypical antipsychotic can be very helpful in breaking that belief and then allowing people the opportunity to start doing the ERP. So I've seen lots of people who have been given that for a little bit of time just to help break that near stuck belief that they have and that obsession is really true. T. Nichols says, any medical advances for a cure? There's things, there's stereotactic radiosurgery, there's deep brain stimulation, there's deep TMS, there's medications. In fact, if people are interested in already doing some medications, NoCD is working with Biohaven to help recruit people for a new drug that they're looking at for OCD. So if you're interested in checking that out and being part of a research study on some new medication, reach out to us at nocd.com and we can get you to our team that will help figure that out. So we'd love to see if we can advance the medical science for OCD as well too. And that's something we're trying to do. Daily Art Grind says, thanks as always. Well, you're welcome. Well, everyone, it's that time again. It's been fun. I want to leave you all with a couple of things just to remember and think about. Anything that says to you that you have to have 100% certainty is probably OCD because no one in the world lives with it. Now, we started thinking we had no guarantee that the ceiling wouldn't collapse on us. And look, it didn't. But I also didn't do any rituals to prevent it from happening either. It just didn't happen. Why didn't it happen? I don't know. I can't give you a 100% answer on that, but it didn't. And I'm just going to live with the fact that it didn't and be okay with that. I don't have to know why it didn't happen. I'm just going to be fine with that experience. I hope you all have a great evening and make it a great week. As always, it is great, just great to be here with all of you. And to my friend Paul, once again, thank you for your wonderful theme song music, Paul. Good to see all of you. Come back again next week. Taylor Neuendorf will be doing the webinar next week. Thank you, Taylor, sitting in for me. I've got a meeting I've got to go to, but we'll be back after that. And we're going to have some cool guests coming up in the next couple of weeks as well. So enjoy, everyone. Have a great night. Talk to you later. I can see sun above my head now. It shines bright.